Today we're at the Salvage Trail. It's not one of our more scenic trails. It was logged back in the, I believe, the early 90s. You can see this sign here. It's the Ward Creek Salvage Sale Interpretive Thinning Area. And this is a U.S. Forest Service property. And I tried to look up the history of this trail. There's not much except for the term salvage means that after they logged it, of course they sold those trees, and then they went back, and then when the second growth started coming up, they thinned it, and then they sold those trees too. So that's the salvage part. They salvaged the down trees. And this trail has a lot of kind of sentimental memories to me. My mom and I used to, back 25 years ago, we used to walk here a lot. And I'll show you the old picnic table where my mom and I used to sit and have coffee and complain about life. So here we go down the trail. Just had a bald eagle fly really low by us. Of course, I didn't have my camera on yet. We have a lot of bald eagles here. So right here behind me is a little woodshed where I have done quite a few sketches and paintings before when it's pouring down rain. It's not a scenic spot. So right here is the picnic table where my mom and I used to sit. You can see it is not very sittable anymore, but we would come here, put our backpacks here, and my mom would bring a huge thermos of coffee, and we would just sit and talk. Our dogs would run all over. She had a couple of Pembroke Welsh Corgis, and I had a lab mix, and gosh, I think a border collie back then too. And so we had a lot of good memories here. My mom has retired and moved down to Idaho, so that's a good memory. I get to go down and visit her every once in a while. So but really the main tree that grows here after a place has been logged are red alders. You can see how they've just taken over the trail. And red alders are used for firewood. They don't live very long. They live maybe 30 years. They don't grow really huge, but they are a benefit to the... Henry just came and jumped on Tony for absolutely no reason. They're just excited. The alders are actually beneficial to the soil. They have nitrogen fixing nodes on their roots. So even though they're kind of weeds and they can take over areas that you don't want them to take over, there's many logging roads that I used to like to hike on that I can't hike on anymore because the alders completely clogged them. This trail is fairly well maintained, so it hasn't been taken over yet. But the nitrogen fixing nodes do supply some nutrients. Here's one of the interpretive trails. My mom and I always called this the Interpretive Trail, but now everybody calls it the Salvage Trail. So they thinned it back in '97, and then they have a little bit of information. It's not terribly interesting information. I have a theory that to be allowed to even log all this, they're like, oh, we'll make some nice interpretive signs for a recreation area. So that's my theory anyway. All right, dogs are crazy this morning. The Chihuahua's at home sleeping in with my son, which is kind of helpful because the Chihuahua likes to chase and bark at Henry. So that's a little noisy for vlogging. Here we go. We're not chasing sticks right now. So the alders are the first growth after a place has been logged or there's been a fall of the evergreens. But the evergreens will start growing, and they just steadily grow all year round. And the alders mostly just grow in the summer. The alders are really our main deciduous trees. We don't have many deciduous trees here. So not only do the nitrogen fixing nodes help the soil, but the leaves falling also helps the soil. We've had some really big storms here this past week. We had one day with almost 8 inches of rain, and one day we had 50, 60 mile an hour winds. So you can kind of see all the leaves that have been knocked down to the ground. And so those leaves actually help the soil too, but you'll see that the evergreens will start taking over here. We have a red alder there, and then right here we have a western red cedar. And these red cedars will grow and grow. They will live up to 1,200 years. So they will just slowly keep growing and growing. Those are the trees that the Alaska Natives will make canoes and totem poles and clan houses out of. You can see some of the evergreens over here starting to come up. I see some Sitka spruce. There's some hemlocks. And of course we have all the shrubs that grow up too after a place has been cleared. This is a salmonberry. We have some red elderberry up here. And so a lot of life in the Alaska temperate rainforest. This is the Tongass National Forest. And it's always green and full of life, but we're losing our leaves, which is kind of nice on this trail. In the summer, this trail can be pretty dark just because all of the leaves in the canopy of these red alders make it pretty shady in here, even on a sunny day. So in the winter, it's kind of nice. This trail becomes a lot brighter when the alders lose their leaves. Right here we have probably the lone large red cedar that's left on this trail after the logging project. It's a pretty big one, it's pretty old. We could start to see the distant mountaintops back there. We will be getting to a place where we can see a pretty good view up here down the trail. So we also have a little surprise down the trail. There's a Bigfoot. Stay tuned for Bigfoot. Here's a cute little bench here that I doubt anybody ever uses, but good on them for trying. And here's another little interpretive sign. So I don't know why they thought hikers were going to need to know that this was thinned at a 10 foot spacing, 435 trees per acre. It's not terribly interesting information, but it's, I suppose, got to give them kudos for trying. Here we are at the creek. This actually was a landslide about, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. So they had to modify this. And I'll show you the painting up above. I've done paintings, sketches here. Kind of makes a charming little creek, but it's one of the few little kind of scenic parts of this trail. These huge culverts that go through. All right, as I promised, the mysterious Bigfoot makes its appearance. Here we go. Into the deep, dark woods. Will we survive this Bigfoot hunt? There it is, the elusive Bigfoot of Southeast Alaska. Climbed a small mountain to get up here. It was about a couple of years ago. They trimmed down, they cut down all of the trees that were under those power lines up there. There's this big power line cut. It goes way back into the island. And mostly we have hydroelectric power here, which is pretty nice. Keeps our electric bill reasonable. And although a clear cut is not the most pretty thing in the world, it is kind of nice in a land where our woods are so thick to have a spot where the sun can shine through. Oh. Okay, so here we are getting to the crest of this hill. And sure enough, the sun is right behind those mountains. You can see what a good job they did of cutting down all those trees. I can't imagine doing such a big job. You would see 5 or 6 men and women gathering with their chainsaws, and every day they would just spend the whole day sawing those trees down by hand. If you haven't met my border collies yet, there's Edna in front. She's 11. That's Audrey behind. She is almost 7. And then the baby short-haired border collie in back, he's 3. Here we are at a nice little bench. This one is much more recent. This is more recent because this trail here connects down to a parking lot. This was built not that many years ago. This is a much more recent trail than the original Salvage trail. It was built, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And this here, which is called the Extra, this was coined by a woman who absolutely loved hiking here, and she passed away a few years ago. And she was a big supporter of dog rescue in this community, and she loved hiking. We all miss her very much, Heather. This was just the last portion of the Salvage trail, but now it's just called the Extra because when they built this new connecting trail, people hardly ever use this anymore. I like to walk here. This was actually one of the only times over the 30-some years I've hiked here that I had a wolf encounter. I was walking with my dogs, got to the very end of that, and at the very end it just ends with a bunch of trees around it. And I had 4 dogs with me, and I turned around. I was getting ready to get my tea out, and I looked ahead on the trail, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, whose Malamute is out here just running around loose? It was just lying flat on the ground, so I couldn't see its size. But I just sensed that something was not right, and my dog started running toward it, and so I just yelled, wait! And fortunately, all of them sensed the urgency in my voice, and they all stopped. And then the dog stood up, and it was a huge wolf, big gray wolf, and it just stood there and stared at us. And although wolves, I am not worried about them hurting me at all. Wolves sometimes will stalk dogs and try to kill them and eat them. We've had a few dogs injured or even killed in this area, so I wanted to make sure my dogs did not move. The dogs and me and the wolf had a standoff for what felt like half an hour. I'm sure it was only about 30 seconds. And I think it had just been following us silently for quite a while, maybe just judging which of the dogs maybe looked weaker. I don't know. Another thing is wolves are so quiet. I was not totally sure that it was the only wolf. There could have been more in the woods that I couldn't see or hear. So it was a little bit of a freaky moment. But the wolf just suddenly took this huge leap and escaped into the woods. and I haven't ever had an encounter like that with a wolf since. The worst wolf-related encounter that we had is that Edna, my older girl, was hiking with my son on a logging road a few years ago, and suddenly she disappeared. And as you can tell, the collies do not disappear. They're always tuned into us. So my son went back on the road, and she had been caught by her neck in a wolf snare that someone had set that went completely across the logging road. Now, in the trapper's defense, that road was actually private property that sometimes we would go on in the winter because nobody else would go there. So my son did have a way to cut that snare off of her neck, and she was okay. But anyway, we don't have too many wolf encounters here. I've seen them on the road. When I parked at a logging road once, there was a wolf that was chewing on an old deer carcass there. But for the most part, wolves are not something we worry about. They're very secretive. They do not like being where humans are. Bears, on the other hand, they tend to like where humans are because humans leave garbage and food lying around. This goes down to Ward Creek. I've done a vlog down there. If you would like to see that, check out the card up above. But we are headed up the little connector trail to Salvage Trail. This is a lot different kind of forest here than Salvage Trail, because this has never been logged, this portion. So this is much more just regular Ketchikan forest. It's a really pretty little section of trail. Do have a lot of alders here though. Anywhere that's been disturbed, a trail, a road, has alders. So this tree here must have a lot of bugs, because look at how many holes that the woodpeckers have drilled in there. It's got some yellow cedars here. We're almost back to the car. Thanks for joining us on our adventure today, and enjoy these bloopers. Their color has a mind of its own. So. Audrey, go. Today we're at the Salvage. Today we're at the Salvage. So obnoxious.